There's a silent force shaping your destiny, and it's not what you say yes to, but what you're finally willing to say no to. We often think that abundance is about opening up, welcoming more, and embracing every opportunity. But what if true prosperity is born not from expansion, but from sacred boundaries? Every time you say yes out of fear, guilt, or habit, you dilute your frequency. You stretch yourself thin in the name of being kind, spiritual, or open, and unconsciously send a signal to the universe: I'm not ready to choose myself. That's not a path to manifestation. That's a path to energetic exhaustion. Joe Dispenza reminds us that our thoughts and emotions emit electromagnetic signatures, and those signatures magnetize our reality. When you say no to what no longer resonates with your core, you collapse outdated timelines and give your energy permission to reorganize. Napoleon Hill also taught that indecision and inability to say no are silent killers of success. The most prosperous people don't say yes to more, they say no to what disturbs their internal coherence. Bob Proctor once said, "Leaving behind the paradigm is the first step to wealth." That paradigm often includes people-pleasing, overcommitting, and the addiction to being liked. In this video, we'll explore the spiritual, emotional, and neuroenergetic power of saying no as an act of self-honor. Not rejection, but realignment. Not closing doors, but clearing the path for the right ones to open. This is how you begin to unlock the code of prosperity. The no as an energetic boundary. The prosperity secret. No one talks about. There comes a point on the spiritual path where growth no longer comes from saying yes to new opportunities, but from finally having the courage to say no to what subtly drains your light. This moment is rarely glamorous. There is no applause when you decline a project, set a boundary with a loved one, or turn down a role that flatters the ego but betrays the soul. And yet in the energetic fabric of reality, these quiet refusals carry more weight than the loudest affirmations. Energetically, every yes is a contract, even unspoken, even unconscious. You say yes when you accommodate what you've outgrown. You say yes when you respond out of fear of being judged, and each agreement you sign with your silence siphons a piece of your life force. That's the real cost of people-pleasing. Not just emotional fatigue, but vibrational fragmentation. Joe Dispenza teaches that the brain and heart together create a field that radiates out into the quantum realm, collapsing potential into reality. When that field is scattered, when we're pulled in too many directions or vibrating in guilt, we emit incoherence. The universe doesn't respond to what we say we want. It responds to the electromagnetic field of what we permit. To create coherent abundance, we must become energetically precise. And that precision often sounds like, "No, this isn't for me anymore." There's a reason why the most aligned people you meet often seem simple in their lives, almost monk-like in what they allow. They're not rejecting life, they're curating vibration. Like a sculptor who sees the masterpiece hidden inside the marble, they chip away everything that doesn't belong. Prosperity is not about getting more, it's about becoming less entangled. Every no you speak from clarity returns a fragment of your soul. Many live in resistance to this truth. There is a spiritual myth that equates love with unlimited availability, as if being high vibration means never disappointing anyone. But love without boundaries becomes martyrdom, and martyrdom is a low frequency, rooted in resentment, shame, and unworthiness. What the world calls nice often masks a deep spiritual disconnection. True compassion begins with internal coherence, and coherence begins with boundaries. There is an invisible architecture to abundance. You must become the kind of vessel that can hold it. If you are constantly leaking energy, saying yes when you mean no, abandoning your intuition to keep the peace, overextending in the name of kindness, there will be no container for prosperity to land. The universe doesn't bless chaos, it blesses order, and every aligned no is an act of sacred reordering. Napoleon Hill wrote that successful people make decisions quickly and change them slowly. Unsuccessful people, on the other hand, are slow to decide and quick to change course. What he's really pointing to is energetic certainty, the ability to say no without internal collapse, the clarity that signals to life itself, "I know who I am and what belongs in my field." And yet, this clarity isn't inherited, it's earned, usually after years of depletion, years of softening your voice so others can feel comfortable, years of mistrusting your own instincts. waiting for someone else to give you permission. Eventually, that exhaustion becomes a teacher. You realize that burnout is not a sign of too much effort. It's a consequence of too many misaligned yeses. There's something profoundly spiritual about reclaiming your no. It's not an act of ego, it's a declaration of presence. It says, I am awake enough to notice what is misaligned and brave enough to choose differently. It's a refusal to betray your nervous system just to be accepted. And this refusal has power. You become a vibrational match for cleaner relationships, clearer opportunities, and deeper peace. Imagine your energy field as a home. Every yes is like opening the front door. If you never close it, if everyone and everything has access, there's no sanctity, no protection, no invitation for the sacred to enter. But when you begin to guard that door, something shifts. The air inside becomes still. The space becomes holy. And only what resonates with your truth is allowed to stay. The nervous system remembers every time you silenced your truth, every moment you felt something was off but didn't want to make it awkward. Those tiny betrayals accumulate. They become tension in the shoulders, tightness in the chest, fatigue that no amount of sleep can cure. And on a deeper level, they become resistance to abundance. Because abundance requires trust. And how can you trust life when you don't trust yourself to say no? There is also a karmic dimension to this. When you keep saying yes to what drains you, you rob others of the chance to grow. You enable their comfort, but block their expansion. Sometimes your no is the most loving thing you can offer. It returns people to their own power. It teaches by example. It says, I trust you to figure this out. I trust myself to walk away. And I trust the universe to fill this space with something more aligned. The no becomes a spiritual tuning fork. It aligns your vibration with your higher self. It tells the quantum field, I am serious about my healing. I will not negotiate my peace for temporary approval. And this clarity begins to reflect back. Opportunities arrive that don't require you to shrink. Relationships form where boundaries are respected. Prosperity flows, not because you forced it, but because you stopped scattering your energy. This is the prosperity secret no one talks about. The ability to say no with grace is one of the most magnetic acts of self-respect. It's not rejection, it's realignment. It's not about becoming rigid or closed. It's about becoming sovereign. You are not here to be everything for everyone. You are here to become everything to your soul. And that journey begins with one sacred word. The silent factor of self-sabotage. How the fear of saying no sabotages. Your abundance frequency. There is a quiet voice that echoes beneath every unmet goal, every abandoned vision board, and every delayed breakthrough. It's not always loud, but it's persistent. It says, what if I upset someone? What if they walk away? What if I fail alone? This is not just fear. It is self-sabotage disguised as empathy. And at the root of this sabotage lies the fear of saying no. On the surface, it seems innocent. You say yes to avoid conflict. You agree to stay available, flexible, kind. But beneath this social mask, your inner being starts to shrink. And while your outer life might appear busy, connected, even generous, your inner world becomes increasingly fractured. That fracture sends out a vibration, one of hesitation, incoherence, and contradiction. And the universe, always faithful to your frequency, mirrors that fragmentation back to you. Joe Dispenza speaks often about emotional addiction. We become addicted not only to emotions like guilt and fear, but also to the identity they sustain. If your nervous system is wired to associate safety with pleasing others, then saying no feels dangerous. Not because the choice is wrong, but because the old self is being threatened. The same self that has kept you alive in cycles of compromise. Yet what keeps you alive isn't always what allows you to thrive. Abundance responds to coherence, not convenience. When your body says no, but your mouth says yes, you split your signal, and that signal becomes confusing to the quantum field. You ask for abundance, but vibrate in sacrifice. You desire wealth, but operate from scarcity. Scarcity of permission, time, and trust in your voice. This is the spiritual contradiction that blocks manifestations. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're not being energetically clear. We are conditioned early to associate no with rejection. As children, we learn that saying no can result in punishment, withdrawal of love, or isolation. So we internalize the lesson. To belong, I must yield. I must soften. I must not disturb. And thus begins a pattern where the cost of connection becomes the sacrifice of authenticity. Over time, this pattern calcifies into identity. You begin to believe that your worth is directly tied to your ability to be agreeable. But the soul doesn't care about being agreeable. It cares about being alive. Every suppressed no becomes a spiritual debt, a subtle signal to the universe that you are willing to trade alignment for acceptance. And while you might receive temporary relief, avoiding conflict, staying liked, you also reinforce the message that your truth is negotiable. That message is what abundance listens to. Not your wishes, not your mantras, but your core vibrational truth. Gregg Braden has spoken about the power of heart-brain coherence. When the mind and heart are aligned, we create a field of electromagnetic harmony that communicates directly with the creative intelligence of the universe. But fear of saying no disrupts this harmony. It forces the heart to contract while the mind remains polite. And in that internal conflict, we sever the bridge that connects desire to reality. This fear also creates a hidden fatigue, so soul exhaustion that no amount of rest can resolve. You wake up tired not because your body is weak, but because your spirit is carrying too many false agreements. Agreements to show up when you don't want to give when your cup is empty, to nod in silence when your truth wants to speak. Over time, this fatigue becomes resistance to action, to joy, to risk, and it begins to resemble depression. But it's not depression, it's suppression. The nervous system cannot lie. When you say yes with a contracted chest, a shallow breath, or clenched teeth, the body registers it as betrayal. The body remembers. It stores the misalignment in the gut, in the throat, in the posture of apology. These physical cues become energetic codes, and those codes are what shape your external reality. You can journal about abundance every morning, but if you say yes out of fear by noon, your vibration resets. To fear saying no is to fear being misunderstood. It is the belief that your truth will create disconnection. But the deeper truth is that misalignment already is disconnection. It just wears a friendlier face. You can be surrounded by people and still feel invisible if your yes isn't real. You can be praised and still feel hollow if your boundaries are ignored. The illusion of harmony is the most expensive lie we tell ourselves, because it costs us ourselves. There is an energetic cost to self-abandonment, and the universe always collects. It collects in the form of delays, stagnant dreams, unclear signs, missed synchronicities, not as punishment, but as a mirror, a sacred feedback loop that says, you are still out of alignment. Your yes is still fear-based. Your silence is still shouting. Saying no isn't about becoming aggressive. It's about becoming honest. It's about meeting the moment with the truth of your body. It's about trusting that discomfort does not mean danger, and that losing temporary validation is a small price to pay for eternal integrity. Integrity is magnetic. It is the quiet power that reshapes your entire reality, because it tells the universe, I am no longer available for the frequency of betrayal, even if it's my own. So many people sabotage their manifestations not because they're lazy or ungrateful, but because they're afraid to be true, afraid to face the temporary pain of disapproval, afraid to release the identity that got them this far. But transformation always demands risk. You must risk being seen as difficult to finally be seen as whole. To say no is to remember your role as a co-creator, not a performer. You are not here to entertain the expectations of others. You are here to align with the rhythm of your own becoming. The more you practice this, the more your external world reconfigures. Opportunities become cleaner, relationships become clearer, prosperity becomes closer, and perhaps most importantly, peace becomes permanent. The fatal mistake of seeking prosperity. Without inner coherence, why saying yes when you mean no destroys your vibration? There is a dissonance that haunts even the most well-intentioned spiritual seekers. It's not born of a lack of effort, nor of laziness or ignorance. It is the fracture between desire and embodiment, the space where people say they want prosperity, but vibrate in contradiction. This dissonance doesn't come from what they're doing. It comes from what they're tolerating. Specifically, all the moments they say yes when every cell of their being is whispering no. You cannot fake alignment. The universe does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to who you are in silence, what you permit, what you allow, what you betray in the name of appearances. When your inner world is saying no, but your mouth insists on yes, that fracture becomes a vibrational leak, and prosperity, which requires coherence, slips through the cracks. Joe Dispenza often speaks of the electromagnetic signature of thought, combined with elevated emotion. This signature becomes your broadcast into the quantum field, but when that emotion is polluted by obligation, guilt, or anxiety, it becomes static. You might visualize abundance in meditation, but if you walk through your day negotiating your truth, that signal is overwritten. What you vibrate is not what you hope for in silence, it's what you tolerate in motion. Prosperity is not just about receiving, it is about resonance, and resonance cannot occur in an incoherent field. Incoherence arises when you act out of alignment with your own internal compass. You might smile to avoid confrontation, agree to things that drain you, or continue relationships that blur your edges, all in the name of peace. But this peace is often spiritual sedation, a quiet death of your soul's frequency. The subconscious remembers. Every time you override your truth, a message is encoded deep within. My needs are not safe. My feelings are not valid. My presence must be edited to be accepted. Over time, this becomes your vibrational blueprint, and manifestation, no matter how potent the ritual or how refined the technique, will always conform to that underlying code. This is not sabotage, it's precision. The universe is not withholding, it is matching. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The unconscious pattern of self-abandonment is often disguised as politeness, professionalism, or even spiritual humility. But beneath the surface, it is a trauma response, a pattern learned in childhood, reinforced by culture, and eventually spiritualized into a lifestyle that keeps the soul small and quiet. This pattern becomes especially destructive when paired with the desire for prosperity. Because prosperity is not neutral, it is an amplifier. It magnifies who you already are. If you are clear, it accelerates your clarity. If you are conflicted, it multiplies your chaos. And this is why people who receive money or recognition out of alignment often find themselves anxious, drained, or empty. The external gain cannot stabilize an internal incoherence. Saying yes when you mean no is not simply a social faux pas. It is an act of vibrational sabotage. It teaches your field to accept contradiction as normal. It conditions your nervous system to betray itself in the name of being liked. And it trains the quantum field to respond to a version of you that does not actually exist. Over time, this gap between essence and expression creates friction. That friction is often experienced as resistance, confusion, or stagnation. Many people misinterpret this resistance. They assume the universe is testing them, or that their manifestations are delayed because they are not positive enough. But positivity without integrity is noise. Real manifestation is not about being happy all the time. It's about being true to your boundaries, your body, your timing. When you force yes where there should be no, you short-circuit that truth, and the cost is your coherence. There is a subtle violence in overriding your own clarity. It fractures your energy. It silences your intuition. It teaches your body that stillness is unsafe and boundaries are dangerous. Eventually, this leads to exhaustion, not just physically, but spiritually. You may still be functioning, still showing up, still performing spiritual practices, but the spark is gone. The soul feels misrepresented, and until that inner truth is restored, no external prosperity will feel safe to receive. Coherence begins with congruence. With your thoughts, emotions, and actions aligned, it begins the moment you stop performing and start living in integrity with your body's truth. That means pausing before every yes. That means feeling into the answer, even if it disappoints someone. That means honoring your timing, your needs, your intuition, even when it disrupts the image others have of you. Especially then, there is a sacred kind of wealth that only flows to those who are energetically whole. Not perfect, not unshakable, but honest. These are the people who walk away from jobs that pay well, but suffocate their soul, who leave relationships that look good, but feel misaligned, who say no to what's almost right so they can remain available for what's fully true. Their wealth is not just financial, it's embodied. Their abundance is not loud, It's peaceful. When you begin to live in coherence, something strange happens. Opportunities that once felt forced begin to arrive with ease. People respect your boundaries without needing to be reminded. The body feels lighter, the mind quiets, and the heart becomes a compass, not a battlefield. This is not magic, it is resonance. The outer world mirrors the inner alignment. The universe does not respond to what you pretend to be, it responds to what you choose to honor. The most powerful yes you will ever say begins with a courageous no, not to others, but to the version of you that was built on survival. That version is not wrong. It kept you safe. It helped you belong. But it cannot take you further. The path of prosperity demands a different voice. A voice that shakes at first but strengthens with use. A voice that whispers through the noise, I am no longer available for anything that costs me my coherence. And as you speak that truth, not just once but again and again, you become the frequency of wealth. Not because you chased it, but because you became the version of yourself who could hold it, without contradiction, without confusion, and without apology. Sacred technique for saying no without guilt. Reprogram your energy to prosper. With inner authority, there is a kind of guilt that doesn't scream. It simmers quietly beneath the surface of your choices. It shows up in the hesitation before speaking your truth, in the tightness of your chest after agreeing to something misaligned, in the restless nights spent replaying conversations where you betrayed your clarity just to be kind. This is the guilt that haunts those who've learned to survive by shrinking. But you were never born to be small, and saying no is not rejection, it's restoration. To prosper in alignment, one must learn the spiritual art of refusal, not from resistance, but from reverence. Saying no without guilt is not about becoming harsh or detached. It's about becoming energetically sovereign. It's about remembering that you are not here to manage how others feel about your truth. You are here to embody it. And this embodiment requires technique, not just emotionally, but neurologically and spiritually. Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches that we can rewire our neural pathways through elevated emotion and repetition. That means guilt, too, is a learned pattern, a reflex conditioned by years of prioritizing others' comfort over your own clarity. But if it was programmed, it can also be reprogrammed. The key is presence. The more present you are with your body, the more clearly you can discern between fear and intuition, between inherited guilt and inner guidance. Begin by noticing the moment before the yes, that sacred pause. Within that pause lives a truth that doesn't always use words. It might be a tightening in your stomach, a wave of heat, a sense of inner collapse. That is the signal. That is your body telling you, this is not your path. Do not override it. Instead, honor it like a sacred bell. Feel it fully. And in that presence, let your no rise, not from defense, but from devotion. This is not easy, especially for those raised to believe that love is earned through sacrifice, that harmony is maintained through silence, that being good means being agreeable. But spiritual maturity requires discernment. You cannot protect your field if your boundaries are blurred. You cannot walk in truth if you keep folding at the altar of guilt. And you cannot call in abundance if you remain loyal to depletion. Guilt, in its distorted form, is a byproduct of emotional enmeshment. It says, if they are upset, I am wrong. But emotional sovereignty breaks this illusion. You are not responsible for how others digest your truth. You are responsible for delivering it with love, yes, but also with strength. That balance, soft heart, clear spine, is what transforms your no into a portal, not just for self-protection, but for energetic alignment. Greg Braden often speaks about the intelligence of the heart, that it sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to it. This heart wisdom is subtle, but profound. When you tune into it, your decisions no longer come from logic or fear, they come from resonance. And saying no begins to feel less like rejection and more like music, a harmony with your deepest frequency. A note that only you can hear, but that the universe always responds to. There is a sacred technique to anchoring this frequency. Begin each day in stillness. Place your hand over your heart. Breathe slowly and deeply until you feel the rhythm of your own presence. Then speak internally a phrase of anchoring. Today I will honor the truth that lives in my body. I am safe to say no. Let this become a daily ritual, not for protection, but for recalibration. When the moment arrives, A request, an invitation, a decision. Pause. Feel first. Don't rush to explain. Don't over-justify. Your no doesn't require a thesis. It requires coherence. If needed, speak gently but directly. That doesn't feel aligned for me right now. Or, I need to honor my capacity. These phrases are bridges, not defenses. They communicate clarity without attack, and they signal to your own nervous system, I can be true and safe at the same time. Over time, this practice begins to rewrite your energetic blueprint. The guilt diminishes, the body relaxes, the field clears, and something extraordinary happens. Life begins to respond to this new coherence. You attract relationships that respect your time, opportunities that match your rhythm, circumstances that honor your sovereignty, not because you forced them, but because you finally stopped abandoning yourself. Saying no without guilt also clears space for joy. You reclaim time that was once given in obligation. You restore energy that was once spent managing others' perceptions. And in that spaciousness, your creativity awakens. Your intuition sharpens. Your connection to the divine deepens. You realize that true prosperity is not the result of constant activity. It is the fruit of energetic integrity. The path to this integrity is not linear. You will stumble. You will second guess. Sometimes you will say yes out of habit and feel the echo of misalignment later. That's okay. Guilt only becomes shame when you believe you are wrong for growing. But you are not wrong. You are remembering. Every conscious no is a sacred stitch in the tapestry of your becoming. Every time you honor your truth, the universe bows in recognition. To prosper is to say yes to your own frequency, but that yes only holds power if it is supported by 1,000 sacred no's. No to overextension. No to false peace. No to inherited guilt. No to a life of quiet resentment. And yes to a life that fits your soul like skin. A life where your energy is clean, your voice is strong, and your presence becomes a transmission of alignment. This is not the loud kind of prosperity. It doesn't shout, it doesn't need to, it simply radiates. And all of it begins with one phrase spoken in love, rooted in presence, and free from apology. No. Prosperity is not a prize that arrives once you've done enough, pleased enough, or proven yourself worthy. It is a current that flows through coherence, through alignment, through the fierce, quiet courage of choosing yourself again and again. In a world that teaches us to seek belonging through compromise, reclaiming your no is nothing less than revolutionary. It is a spiritual declaration that your energy is sacred and that not everything or everyone is meant to have access to it. Joe Dispenza reminds us that when we shift our internal state, we shift the field around us. Saying no becomes an act of energetic authorship, a signal to the quantum that you are no longer available for distortion, depletion, or delay. Greg Braden teaches that the heart's electromagnetic field is the most powerful frequency we carry. And when that heart says no with clarity and love, it recalibrates not only your path, but the way life responds to you. Every boundary you set becomes a bridge to your higher self. Every time you disappoint someone, in order to stay true to your resonance, you choose liberation over illusion. This is not coldness. This is maturity. You are not here to be consumed. You are here to be expressed, to walk in truth so deeply that your presence becomes a mirror, a lighthouse, a tuning fork for those still lost in people-pleasing fog. Prosperity flows to those who live like they already belong, not to the world, but to their essence. And every aligned no is a return to that essence, a return to center, to soul, to self. And maybe that's the most abundant life of all, the one where you no longer trade your peace for participation. Now, a question for you. What part of your life is still waiting for you to say the no you've been too afraid to speak? If this message resonated with your spirit, subscribe to our channel. It's a space for depth, truth, and the sacred art of self-alignment. Let this be your spiritual home, where each word is a key and each video is a door to your expansion. And don't stop here. Watch the next video appearing on your screen. There's more waiting for you on the other side of awareness.